Another season, another choke job by Toronto.
Yeah, who needs Drake when the Maple Leafs are running through the sixth with a bunch of their own woes?
Oh, wait, Tyler, didn't you drop that same Drizzy on Wednesday?
I did, Cam. I did. Different night, but same result. And, we'll talk about this game on this Sunday night Stanley Cup edition of Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hello there, hockey fans. Welcome to another episode of Locked On NHL Game Night. I'm Cam Stewart, a fan of the team that's about to get a second first-round pick via the Toronto Maple Leafs this year and doing it happily on the third coast.
Hey, he's happy. How about that? Love to see it. I'm Tyler Feldman, a lifelong Penguins fan, born and raised in Pittsburgh, but currently loving life in Austin, Texas. This episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. Cam, one game on the docket tonight, Game 7 up in Toronto. Would it be the Maple Leafs or the defending Stanley Cup champion Panthers joining the Carolina Hurricanes in the Eastern Conference Final?
Well, Tyler, Toronto has not been there since Attack of the Clones was in theaters, since
Don't
Kelly
act like
Clarkson.
Cam, don't act like you were around back in 1967, okay?
They hadn't been to the conference finals in over 20 years. Kelly Clarkson had just won the first season of American Idol. And, well, we didn't.
Now she hosts a show, a late night or a daytime show, right?
Yeah, and she can talk about how the Leafs still have not gone to the conference finals since 2002.
So can we.
Have not been in the Stanley Cup final since the summer of love. The Doors had not even topped the charts yet last time they went to the Stanley Cup final. The defending champs left no doubt as to who was going to be moving on. 6-1. 6-1. Wait. I'm sorry. Am I on the wrong YouTube video? Am I listening to the wrong podcast here? They talked about the Leafs losing 6-1 at home to the Panthers the last time they were on together. No, that's true. It's not a typo. 12-2 in the last two home games for the Leafs in this series in the middle of an absolutely gutsy Game 6 victory. No such thing as gutsy for the Leafs in this one. Guts all over the floor is more like it. This was a weird start, man. They didn't get a shot in the game until 12 minutes in. They were down 7-0 in shots. Then it was 7-7, and then it was 21-9 Florida. And by the time it was 21-9 in shots, it was 3-0 on the scoreboard. Early in the second, Seth Jones. How about that for a trade deadline pickup?
Hey, give the Panthers credit at the deadline. They made some serious moves, and we saw how they benefited from those moves here tonight.
Big time. This was a big-time trade deadline game. We'll get to the other half of that in a second because Anton Lundell made it 2-0 Florida. Assist to Brad Marchand, who might have been the best player on the ice tonight. Had an incredible shift that leads to the second goal.
Cam, time out. I see a little new decoration behind you.
Oh, wait.
Over your right shoulder.
What's this? What is
wow,
this?
How about that?
What is this? Leafs fans, look away, man. It's starring in your nightmares.
Special occasion.
Oh, man. That? It's just.
Looks good.
It's something that never gets old, Tyler. Seeing what Tyler there has been no boogeyman that we've seen in this since Sidney Crosby against Alex Ovechkin in the Capitals. Would you agree in that? One player against a certain team every year in the playoffs?
For sure. And Cam, the one thing I like about the Boston Bruins color scheme is that if I was 1,000 feet away, I'd think that was maybe a Jaromir Jagr Pittsburgh Penguins jersey. That's
this one in particular,
and you can't really read what the last name says, and you can't see the Fanatics sign because it wouldn't be a Fanatics logo on a Jagr jersey. But hey, that's former Panther Jaromir Jagr.
Yeah. And this is where it really starts to go wrong if it hadn't already gone wrong for Toronto. Then something named Jonah Gadjovich scores to make it 3-0. We're halfway through the game. It really should have been 4-0. Seth Jones scores a goal. They knock off for him apparently kicking it into the net, which I didn't think that was the right call.
Cam, 3 goals in 6 minutes and 24 seconds, and the roof exploded. And not the way that you'd want it to explode. Not a good way. The fans in Toronto, after that third goal, they looked ghostly, like they white in the face. That's how the energy felt. My other favorite moment after that third goal, the slow-mo video right at Mitch Marner yelling at the bench, quote, "Wake the F up." Now,
it seems interesting.
The irony of him saying that is that Mitch Marner never woke up and seemingly has never woken up for an elimination game like this Game 7 tonight. How about this? Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Riley, they now have all 0-6 records in Game 7s. Oh, there we go. And look at that. That's 10 total points between the 4 of them combined in those Game 7 since 2018. How about this for a stat? Cam bringing out the numbers. Oh, here.
I mean, that
was from Game 5. That face, and it applies.
You just keep it over, carry it over to Game 7.
Rinse and repeat. We got Game 5, a 6-1 loss for Toronto on their home ice, and then all of a sudden they went on the road. And you think maybe things change, but no, they get their butts whooped again by the same score in Game 7. So that's now 12-2. They lost their final 2 home games in the playoffs. With 5+ minutes left in this game, you could see all the orange seats at Scotiabank Arena empty. Not the way you want to go out if you're Toronto.
And I'll give you the sequence right here, Tyler, because early in the third, Leafs look like, okay, there's a pulse here. Domi scores right through the 5-hole on Bobrovsky. There's a ton of room, but it's still not a great goal for Bobrovsky to give up. So it's 3-1. And for this weird thing happens. They start doing some ice maintenance like right after the goal. And this feels like home cooking. All right, like this is a little extra time, get the crowd into it. And nobody really knows what's going on. And they start playing Neo. Like it's like, I will not love you tonight. I'm like, what is going on? I'm sitting here like in the living room. I'm like, this is a chance. Get people fired up. Like get a song that everybody's
maybe a little
board
thunderstruck.
Yes, you're getting it. And they don't.
I don't.
They play Neo, and right after that, 40 some odd seconds after Domi's goal on the game clock, Florida scores to make it 4-1. The game is over. TNT has this agreement with the Leafs that it's so embarrassing they're just going to stop showing goals. We totally missed the Reinhart goal.
Tell me more about this agreement. I'm not aware.
Look, I don't know if it's a biz thing or what, but they were like, this is getting really embarrassing. We're not going to show this next goal from the Panthers. They don't. And who else but Brad Marchand buries it? The leading scorer in the series with 8 points. Now only Gordie Howe, only a guy that they call Mr. Hockey, has more playoff points against the Toronto Maple Leafs than Bradley Kevin Marchand. And the Florida Panthers, for the 3rd year in a row, are on to the conference final. Second time in 3 years, it'll be against the Carolina Panthers. That's going to be a fun series.
Hurricanes. You just
what did I say? I just combined.
You were on a heater. You were saying Brad Marchand's middle name.
I did put too much thought into Brad's middle name.
Carolina Panthers. So I just wanted to make sure you meant that it was Carolina versus the Panthers.
Yeah, there you go. Carolina.
God, this is special. A little special Sunday night. How about Brad Marchand? First player in NHL history to win 5 winner-take-all games against the same team. And after the game, he said that inside the locker room, he said this when talking with the guys on TNT, he said that his team had belief. Belief?
I believe there was a bit of a wink after that too.
They had belief, like BELEAF, belief.
Just unbelievable gamesmanship by Brad Marchand and that
team. Can we talk about Luostarinen too? He made it 4-1 Florida. He leads all scorers with 10 points on the road in these playoffs. The guy's been great.
Yeah, and
the Panthers are deep, and they have the right kind of hockey.
That's
really
what I kind of
push
want to point
forward.
out with this. Obviously the Panthers just flat out kicked their ass from minute 1 to minute 60. It was not close. But you look down the score sheet. Where's Sam Bennett? Where's Tkachuk? Where's Tkachuk been this whole series?
I will
Reinhart gets a
say,
consolation goal late. You know what I mean? Or not a consolation goal, but gets a meaningless goal late. They're doing this with guys we've never heard of. That's what's making Florida really dangerous right now.
Paul Maurice, now 6-0 record in game 7s. I don't know if that's luck or you just know how to win or things bounce your way, but tonight, it was a dominant win.
Game 7 Stanley Cup final this year. Maurice, DeBoer, Game 7. They're both undefeated in Game 7s. How awesome would that be?
Something's got to give.
Can't tie
Something's got to give.
I don't think.
Matt Tkachuk before this game tonight said, quote, "Our game is built for this." And quite frankly, the Florida Panthers, despite being down 2-0 early in this series, people forget because of how they played recently. They are built for this. I mean, you look at their game, it's just so complete. And there weren't a lot of penalties. It was a very clean game for the most part, outside of the one referee getting a stick to the face and all that blood. And that was early in the second period. But outside of that, a very clean game. And Florida showing that they can be physical when they need to be, but they could also win a game where it's just complete domination without having to force yourself into the penalty box.
Yeah, and that's the big thing that I do want to bring up, because I've obviously talked about the Panthers' antics quite a bit throughout this postseason on this show. But after they go down 2-0, after the Stolarz injury, there's no shenanigans. There's none of that. There's no, suspendable kind of calls. There's nothing like that. They played hard and played physical, but this is what the Panthers can be. It kind of mirrors what the Carolina Hurricanes are. They don't need to be dirty. A lot of the times they are, but they don't need to be. They're a really talented team with a great coach and a great system. And that's how they came back and won this series. First time ever, by the way, the Panthers have won a series from being down 2-0. I believe that counts for the Florida Panthers and the Carolina Panthers. I don't think any Panther in history has come back from a 2-0 series deficit. So Florida moves on to the conference final. They will take on the Hurricanes of Carolina. We'll have some more on that series coming up later in the show, but I think it's time we go full Toronto here because the Leafs have just pulled off one of the most embarrassing performances in the history of that franchise, and maybe, just maybe, the history of the NHL. The biggest losers coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night. But first, today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You ever look at your bank account and wonder, where the heck did all my money go? I totally get that. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Your personal CFO gives you full visibility and control over your finances. It ain't just a budgeting app, okay? It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. You stop just managing your money and you start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances. You can track spending and plan those long-term goals. And if you want to manage money with a partner, I certainly do. Mine's about to be a doctor. It's easier than ever. Okay. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. So take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNHL for half off your first year. Locked On NHL Game Night. Cam Stewart, Tyler Feldman alongside as we are after every Stanley Cup playoff game. So guys, be sure to like, subscribe, follow us wherever you're following us, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We're here after every game. And unfortunately, this is the last time this year that we'll get a nice hearty chuckle after a Leafs game. I mean, I said a lot of my piece after that Wednesday Game 5, Tyler. They're just the gift that keeps on giving every spring. And I tweeted it after Game 6 to the dozens of people that would notice it. When they won Game 6.
All the Leafs fans were like, yeah, you probably have 3 followers, you loser.
To the void. It's a lot of college football followers, which doesn't help in this. After I was super impressed with Toronto in Game 6, I tweeted, this is going to make what they're about to do much funnier, because it is going to be the big. Thank you. Some say, you know, the most famous people only had 12 followers. Okay. Some would say. But you look at, like, this was going to be the biggest home game for Toronto in 20 years. They actually seized some momentum from the series with how well they played in Game 6. We called Game 5 one of the worst embarrassments in their history. Game 7, same score, takes it to another level. There is nothing. There's no other way to describe this Leafs core other than friggin' losers. Losers, chokers, phonies, fakes, whatever you want to say. It all comes down to one thing, Tyler. They are losers. All they do is lose. Am I wrong?
I don't think you're wrong. I think you're showing your true colors. Little black.
They're losers, Tyler. They lose all the time.
I would describe them as not reaching their full potential and just being entirely underwhelming over the course of the last however many seasons. What's unfortunate, and you called it, you said this was going to be so much funnier when they got crushed in Game 5 on their home ice. Then Joseph Woll posts a 2-0 shutout in Game 6 on the road in Sunrise, and then they come back and they get crushed again, a similar, exact same 6-1 final score. Hey, Woll in elimination games coming into this one tonight, 4-1 with a 1.13 goals against average and a .957 save percentage. So you thought, whoa, no Stolar? Okay, maybe Woll gets it done. Not the case, and it wasn't entirely his fault.
Yeah.
Everyone that you just mentioned in front of him. Tavares now has 4 Game 7 losses. Matthews, Marner, Nylander, Riley, we showed that graphic, all 0-6 in Game 7. So yes, to your point, losers. Big L on the top of their forehead. They were looking kind of dumb, okay? And we can go on and on. They didn't get the job done. They were playing Neo. To your point, I think that is a good – they had Justin and Haley Bieber right behind the bench. And we know that Justin's life right now in the headlines is a total mess. And that's the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 7s in this series, in their last 2 home games of the season. That totally connects. Why would you want Justin Bieber with whatever is going on in his life? I hope he finds the happiness, the peace, the safety. I hope everyone comes around. I don't know what's going on. I just read the headlines when it comes to Justin Bieber. I like his music. I hope he figures it out. I don't envy the fact that he was a child superstar. I think there's a lot of challenges that come with that. But there's also challenges when you have all these superstars on your hockey team and you still can't win hockey games. So for him to be there right behind the bench, which by the way, if you're buying tickets for a hockey game, which hockey is the best sport to see live, never buy tickets right behind the bench because, yes, you're going to get to see everything up close and personal, but you're going to be blocked. You're going to be blocked from some of the action. You want to go up a little bit higher. So I don't know why you would pay good money for those seats unless you want to be on TV. And the Biebers, they wanted to be on TV. They wanted to be behind the bench. They wanted to be behind a bunch of losers, okay?
Yet no part of what the Leafs do with this core says we know how to win. It's the little things, right? They don't have anything to do with the hockey game most of the time. It's the Biebers right behind the bench. It's the Neo when you need your crowd to get into it.
Is it too late now to say sorry? Is it too late now
and
to
then
say
it's the stuff that is on the ice. Like the Leafs didn't win a puck battle the whole damn night, man.
No,
they didn't enforce their will one time. None.
Totally agree. And I think anyone who knows hockey and watches that game or listens to this podcast would say the same exact thing. There's no denying that. It's been quite a while. That 2004 Game 7 Eastern Conference quarterfinal 4-1 win over Ottawa seems like a long, long time ago. It's now been 7 consecutive Game 7 losses for this franchise. That ties an all-time NHL record with the Colorado Avalanche. That's not a good record to be tying, especially since you've had so many opportunities. You have Mitch Marner, one of your star players, after a 3-goal deficit, after that 3rd goal saying, wake the F up. You know, it's tough to follow a leader when a leader's demanding that, but isn't actually able to show that through his own actions. We've all experienced that, whether it's in the workplace, on a team, in school. We've seen that. We've felt that. That kind of leadership that, hey, I'm not here to be your best friend, but we can figure this out. Oh, you don't want to be best friends? Why would I want to play with you or for you? I don't think there was a problem within the Leafs locker room. I just don't understand how this team couldn't figure out how to close out a 2-0 series lead, then force a Game 7 and come back with absolutely zero energy. Yeah, you can credit the Panthers. They played incredibly well tonight. But to get what we got out of the core players on this Toronto Maple Leafs team, it just kind of saddens me, Cam. It's sad. This is a fan base that loves their team. And you might find their fan base frustrating, annoying, obnoxious. And I'm sure a lot of it, I'm sure everyone else in Canada feels the same way who's not a Maple Leafs fan. But at some point, you've got to feel for them. I mean, that anguish that we saw throughout the arena tonight, those close-up shots, it defies reality. It defies human nature. A team, a country that loves the sport. That's the team in Toronto where the Hockey Hall of Fame is. That city. I've been to so many Penguins games in Pittsburgh where half the arena, and Pittsburgh's a great sports town. Mm-hmm. They support the Penguins, but half the arena for those Maple Leaf road games in Pittsburgh, it's like a 6-hour drive, I think. Half the arena, blue and white. I mean, that is a passionate fan base. And so for me, I just want to give everyone who's a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, especially Justin and Haley Beaver, big hug. I want to send my thoughts, my condolences, my blessings. May this Toronto Maple Leafs team, may their memory be a blessing.
Because that is coming, by the way. You know, one last thing on the Leafs fans, because I don't feel too bad for a lot of them, as you know, but I will say the place where I feel the most sympathetic for other fan bases is when the owner sucks and they just can't change it. Like there's nothing they can do. And that's not necessarily the case here, but it's as close as you can get without it being the owner. It's just, you cannot, this is totally rudderless. Even with all the talent you have, you're not going to run it back. And the Leafs are not going to run it back. This is the end of the core four. We'll tell you what's coming next for Toronto and Florida coming up next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Locked On NHL Game Night, Tyler Feldman alongside Cam Stewart.
I'm emotional. I'm sorry. I don't, it's like I'm cutting onions. I don't really care about the Maple Leafs at all, but I don't know. I just feel sad for Toronto.
They are the biggest chokers in sports right now. Like this is beyond the pale. You know, you can talk about the Buffalo Bills in football, which ironically there are a lot of fans
but the Buffalo Bills got there and they're going up against the Kansas City Chiefs. And I just don't feel like, hey, you know what? Time out. Now that you mention that, the Florida Panthers are quietly putting together a little bit of a mini dynasty in the NHL. They have a chance. Yeah. They've reached their third straight Eastern Conference final with a chance to reach their third straight Stanley Cup final. And for the Florida Panthers in hockey, where I feel like there's so much more parity, the NFL is competitive, but I just feel like in the NHL, it's a little bit more competitive, top to bottom, both conferences, in both divisions in each conference. I feel like the Panthers are maybe turning into the Chiefs without having a guy like Patrick Mahomes leading the way. I think the sports dictate a little bit differently, where a quarterback in the NFL is way more important. But hey, to that point, yeah, maybe the Florida Panthers are that team that the Maple Leafs are the Bills and the Panthers are the Chiefs. The only difference is I just don't feel like that's totally aligned 100% across the board. Where like the Chiefs are just, how does Josh Allen and the Bills, how do they beat the Chiefs? I'd love to see that, but it just hasn't been possible. Okay. I don't know. Tough one for Toronto tonight.
Yeah, and it's all to point out that what Leafs fans are going through right now is unlike really any other fan base in the four major North American professional sports. And
there's no chance Mitch Marner is returning, right?
That's a good segue into our next point here.
Are the Maple Leafs going to give him the money? And if they do, what are they going to have to give up to give him that money? So I just think this is the end of this iteration of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Yeah, this is like the end of Stand By Me. Like everybody goes their separate ways, and some of them find success, some of them don't. Or I guess the Buffalo Sabres did that with everyone that left became really good and won Stanley Cups. But with this Leafs team, like I bet Tavares will take a really friendly contract to come back if they want him back. Marner is not coming back. Nyes is going to get offer sheeted. I doubt he'll leave, but he will get offer sheeted. But with Marner, he's going to get money. Marner's going to get $14 million a year as a 100-point guy to hit the market. That rarely happens. But I wonder how his prospects change in this series, where we know going into this playoff, he's not a good playoff performer. But this was a dreadful series, Tyler. He doesn't score. He doesn't have a shot for half the series. Matthews, too. Like that, he also gets a ton of blame here. But does that make a difference
25 minutes into the show, that's the first time we've said Austin Matthews. Major problem. Major problem.
Yeah. For both him and for us.
Yeah.
Like I don't want
We've got to be better.
Matthews thing under the rug. Yeah, he was. Yeah. And it's almost like just the whole Leafs thing. It's another player. The Leafs context is a different player. But
I'd argue that I don't think that the way in which
the back.
I'd argue that I don't think that the way in which Mitch Marner has played and did play in the playoffs will impact the amount of money he gets.
I'm more thinking, because he is going to get paid. But I'm more thinking, is there a contending team that was ready to make a giant move like that, or a team that feels they're ready to contend in a year or so? And now they're like, I don't think so. Let Anaheim take him, even though Anaheim.
Anaheim, Mitch Marner and Anaheim.
San Jose take him.
That's intriguing. San Jose with Celebrini. I don't know. I would say that for Mitch Marner, maybe a change of scenery would be beneficial.
Probably.
It seems like this core loves one another. Like I haven't seen anything that would say otherwise. It's just that they couldn't win. They couldn't figure out how to win together. So maybe a change of scenery is what Marner needs. Maybe he finds that right line mate. Maybe he finds that right guy that can really, take Marner's game to the next level, but Marner and Toon could also do the same for that line. I just think that maybe it's a change of scenery thing at this point.
Yeah, maybe it's just not being in Toronto. Like that is
take the pressure off.
Got to be the toughest place to
play. Think about it this way. If Sidney Crosby was drafted by the Toronto Maple Leafs instead of Pittsburgh, it's a crazy hypothetical. For some reason, I still think Crosby figures it out and still wins Stanley Cups there. But that pressure of playing in Toronto for the Maple Leafs seems overwhelming for even the best guys. And we keep seeing that time and time again with different iterations of really talented players on these Maple Leaf teams, but having no Stanley Cup to show for
it. And there are a lot of really good hockey markets in this league. But in terms of that, what you're talking about, that fishbowl, Toronto and Montreal are way over everybody else. Even, some great markets like Pittsburgh and Boston and
Toronto,
and the other Canadian markets.
Montreal, Pittsburgh, and then Boston's like it's like at my feet.
For pressure, because we had such other good teams for so long. And
time out, just in case you're listening instead of watching on this video, I'm being sarcastic, okay? If you didn't hear it in my voice. I don't want Boston picketing, okay?
There are going to be a lot listening to the Leafs downfall, but one last thing, real quick, because we do need to kind of wrap it up. But we also we've talked a lot about Toronto. Let's get a few minutes on the Panthers here. We talked about it earlier. That trade deadline where they get Seth Jones from Chicago and Marchand from the Bruins. They were the two best players on the ice tonight. And again, we talk about the depth. Like these guys, Seth Jones brings, a lot of athleticism on the blue line. Marchand still can produce and brings a winning mentality. Like these Panthers, man, they're in the Final Four. They're just as dangerous as anybody, even though we were looking at Tampa and Toronto out of the East. These Cats, they're feeling pretty good without their stars really coming out to play yet.
Jones and Marchand, not just bringing depth and talent to the Panthers, but experience too. And we saw that experience, especially from Marchand in Game 7 tonight. Goal and 2
He
assists.
crushed him.
Empty net goal. It was just, of course, he got that empty net goal. Cam, I want to go back to when Marchand, it was big news in the NHL when he signed with Florida. What were your feelings when that happened?
I mean, for me, it sucked, but it
were you
had
surprised?
To happen. I was surprised it was Florida, especially because you knew that Marchand had plenty of say in what that was going to be.
But deep down, you knew Marchand wanted to win, right?
Yeah, and Marchand fits in well in Florida. I mean, you know, however you want to describe that culture there.
Clearly.
Like he absolutely, who wouldn't want to play there? Like who wouldn't want to play for the Florida Panthers right now? I mean, it's obviously the weather and the taxes are great, but they've also got an awesome play style. They've got a great coach. They've got an awesome core that plays for one another. And all they do is win, man. They're 4 wins away from their 3rd straight Stanley Cup final with a ring.
Do they get past Carolina?
I think they do. It's going to be a hell of a series, though. Like, Carolina does match them in a lot of ways. Not quite the top-end talent, obviously, but play style, like, that's going to be a really fun series.
Part of me just feels like Carolina's due. I know that's crazy.
I'd love to see it.
They've been on the cusp for so many years now, it seems like. And all the conversation has been around the Hurricanes. They don't have – who are their guys? I think that's perfect. A little flying under the radar. How do you prepare for a team that kind of has no one guy to watch?
Yeah.
I think it's going to make for a fantastic Eastern Conference final. Same deal with the Stars and Oilers, a little rematch on the Western side of the conference. Final 4, Stanley Cup playoffs. It is getting juicy. 4 teams left, baby.
It's awesome. It's awesome stuff. And you talk about Carolina being on the verge, feels like they're due to get there. I could say the same thing about Dallas on the other side. And wouldn't that be something? The Rantanen Bowl in the final, that would be an unbelievable match. Either way,
Great
I mean,
story.
even if you get a rematch of last year's final, like you've got any of these make for a great matchup. So can't wait.
Game one for the Eastern Conference final Tuesday. Game 1 for the Western Conference final Wednesday.
For either of those 2 games, if you miss it or just want to relive it and dive through the numbers, you can join us on Locked On NHL Game Night. We will bring you all the action after every Stanley Cup playoff game, 7 days a week on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. So if you're on YouTube right now, like the video, subscribe to the channel. You'll find us all the time, your local experts on the Locked On channels, as well as the guys like us, Tyler Feldman and Cam Stewart, every night, not every weeknight, every night after the Stanley Cup playoff games on Locked On NHL Game Night.